Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Gifts from the Kitchen episode. Today we're going to be making a couple of breads or cakes. One of them is actually called a bread, the other is called a cake, but they're both the same kind. The first one is going to be one of those that you have a love-hate relationship with, folks. It's a fruit cake. But it's a very good recipe. It's not too heavy. And I'm using these little metal pans, perfect for gift size giving. And they come with a cover. So you can put them right on the top. And this is a recipe that came from my brother-in-law, who's now deceased. One of his sisters in Iowa, and I've yet to find out which one it was, but one of them sent me this recipe. Actually, another one of the sisters will be down here later this winter, and I'm sure she'll recognize the handwriting. And the other one is a date and nut bread, and this is my Aunt Thelma's date and nut bread. And we had this quite a bit, and she was a wonderful dessert maker and pie maker. And a little story, I grew up in a small town, and I grew up in a big old white house, 100-year-old house. Well, it's 100, at least 100 now, because I'm almost 100. Oh well, anyway, and they had another house that was very similar to it, except they also had a great big barn. And what they had was, I guess you would call it a breezeway that connected the house to the barn. But it wasn't a typical breezeway. It was probably as big as almost a double wide mobile home. And it was lined on two sides with tables. And they were just sawhorses with boards on them. But that's where, when you went in first, that's where you went into, and then in a door off of that to get into the kitchen. And that's where at the holiday season you'd go there and find those tables lined with pies. Oh, there'd be the apple pie and the pumpkin pies and sweet potato pie and mincemeat pie, pecan pie. I'm not sure if I remember pecan pie, but anyway. And the breads that she made at Christmas, and one of them was her date and nut bread. And so I have a recipe called Aunt Thelma's date and nut bread, and that's going to be the second bread that I make today. So before I could talk for the next week and a half, I'm going to insert a picture here of the house I grew up in my little town in Massachusetts. And you can get an idea of the kind of house that I'm talking about. But before we go off on a tangent, I'm going to bring you down to the counter, and the first cake we're going to make is the fruit cake. I'll be back in just a minute. Hold on. Okay, let's see what I'm doing here. The first bread that I'm making, as I said, is fruit cake. And this makes a lot. It says it makes 3 1-pound loaves, so I'm using the mini pans, and these are the ones I got. And I'm not sure how many, that may be like a half a pound. So I should probably get twice as much. Now I'm going to show you what some of the ingredients are. In this bowl here, I have 1½ cups of chopped cut dates, 1½ cups of raisins, 2 cups of white sugar, 2 cups of boiling water, and 5 level tablespoons of shortening. And the reason I'm telling you all of that, these are the dates that I used. Okay. The reason I'm telling you all that is that had to be boiled for a few minutes and then let to cool completely. So of course I had to do this in advance in order to make it ready to use now. So I'm going to start by putting that in my mixing bowl. And to that, I'm going to be adding 3 cups of flour, which I sifted, along with a teaspoon of ground cloves, a teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. There's no egg in this bread. So let me just get this going a little bit. Oh, it works better if you plug it in, doesn't it? Okay, wait a minute. And where's my plug? Under the mixer. And I just have it on 2 right at the moment. And I'm going to start adding this flour mixture a little at a time. And I did have a cup here, yeah. There we go. And you know, the date nut bread, which is the other bread that I'm going to be making, is very much like this one. The only difference is that it doesn't have the fruit mixture. Make sure I get all of those spices. Let me just go down the sides here. Now, of course, like I said, this is a cake or a bread that people have a love-hate relationship with. They either love it or they hate it. And actually, my kids wouldn't eat this, not because of the candied fruit that's going to go in it, because of the nuts. They don't like nuts and things. And you could leave them out if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to put in 1 cup of the candied fruit. And 1 cup of chopped walnuts. And I have them on the board over here because even though I bought chopped walnuts, there were some that were, I would say, not particularly chopped well. And I don't think you have to mix it much. You're just getting the things mixed together a little bit. Now this is not the same as that heavy fruit cake that you get in the stores, and it's not the traditional fruit cake, which of course is soaked in booze. And the real traditional fruit cake would probably last a year because of it's preserved with alcohol. And that's all there is to it. My oven is preheated to 325. I'm going to raise it up a little bit. I don't think I can get my pans over here. We'll see. And I have greased these, and I'm not sure how many of them I'm going to need, but we'll see. And I'm going to start by using my measure cup. And you can see that it's a very heavy dough. These fruits, the one you have to boil them, it's actually suggested that you do that the day before. And then let them cool all night. These little pans are nice. They have covers to them, so you can actually put the cover right on them. And I think I'm going to get 6. I like to make these size pans anyway. Even, and of course you can make whatever breads you like. Banana bread, blueberry bread, apple cinnamon. There's all kinds. I don't make fruitcake except Christmas time. Well, and part of that reason is I can't find the fruit. I could use different kinds of dried fruit. We'll save those 2 pans for the other bread. Spread these out a little bit. Now the original recipe says to cook this for an hour or more. Of course, that is for one big pan or 1 pound pans. So I'm going to put these in. I'm going to check them after about a half an hour and see how they are. And we'll be back when they're ready to come out of the oven and show you the next step. Be right back. Okay, here we are back. I just took the fruitcake out of the oven, and it was a good 45 minutes, probably closer almost to an hour. I think it's because the oven was at 325. It's set to cook slowly, and probably the next time, I don't know, I might even bump it up to 350. I have now got the oven bumped up to 350 because the next one calls for that temperature. So I'm going to start by moving something else so you can see me. Here we go. I'm going to start by getting 2½ cups of flour. Now this recipe calls for 1 egg, and I have got that in the mixer already because it's going to be a beaten egg. So okay, there's the 2½ cups of flour, and it calls for a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. So let's get my teaspoons back out again. Teaspoon of soda. The recipes are really quite similar. And I didn't bring out the salt. Teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to sift this. Get that out of the way. So let's beat up this egg. And this is the mixture. This is a package of dates. 1.5 cups of boiling water, 1/4 cup of shortening, which is butter in this case, 1.5 cups of sugar, and it was boiled again like the other one was. And again, it was done earlier so that it could cool. Get all the butter off the side here. And this also calls for a little vanilla. And I'm going to use the other half of my walnuts and again I'm going to just chop them a bit. I'm not going to chop these too much because it is date and nut bread. Okay, so that's in. Now we'll add our flour a little at a time. There you go. A little scooper. And that is that. Now I've got 2 pans ready because we had them from the other one, but I will need to get another couple of them. This one says to cook it for 50 minutes at 350. And I'm going to make these a little fuller, so I think I'll get 3 pans. Let me get one more pan ready. So there we go. And I'm going to slip these in the oven, and then I'll bring the rack over so you can see what the other ones look like. Alexa, give me a timer for 40 minutes.
40 minutes, starting now.
Don't you just love Alexa? My kitchen helper. Let me just get this a little bit cleaned up. That's my mother's handwriting. She died like 23 years ago, so this is an old card. Try to keep it as clean as possible. So there you go. Get the speeder out of the way. Beautiful, huh? They smell so good. You smell the cinnamon and the cloves. So I'm afraid I can't cut one for you because they're just too hot out of the oven and they would all fall apart. But take my word for it, it's good. Now, my dad, when he was a younger man, worked a second job as a caterer, helping a friend of his actually, who owned a catering company. And they used to use the date nut bread a lot for fancy dishes, fancy sandwich parties, where they would cut the date nut bread very thinly and then spread it with a softened cream cheese or maybe a cream cheese and cherry mixture, and then cut them again in half so they were almost like, only about an inch wide, and they were finger sandwiches, and they were delicious. And to this day I still like to have cream cheese on my date and nut bread. So I'm probably no lipstick anymore because I've been in here cooking. But I just wanted to say, hope you enjoyed it. Now this is just a process. It's just a process of what kind of thing you can do for a gift. These little mini cake pans make wonderful gifts. And don't forget, when you make something for someone, it's a gift from the heart. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. It can be just something that you like and want to share with someone else. So I hope you make some of these little gift breads. You can make it with any bread recipe that fancies you. You can even make it with a yeast bread recipe in little small loaves and give a little loaf of fresh bread, or maybe a raisin bread with a glaze on the top of it or something like that. In the meantime, have a great afternoon. I'm going to come back briefly and just show you the date nut breads when they come out of the oven. And then we'll say see you later until Tuesday, when we'll be trying to make a bubble wreath with 10-inch mesh. So until then, everybody play nice now, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.